Hi, this is Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about wiring problems and diagnosing them. So I have an instrument here in front of me that had a problem that it came in with, which was that when the player touched the cover to this humbucking pickup, the sound that he would get out of the amp was like a 60 cycle hum almost. It was playing, it was making a noise when the surface was touched. Now this is not supposed to be an active surface. This is supposed to be connected to ground, and anything connected to ground you shouldn't be hearing through the amplifier because that's going out into ground and it's going bye-bye. It's not something that you're going to hear in the active circuit generally. So that means that when you're touching a surface, a plate surface like this or like this, or like the control plate on an instrument or something like that that is connected with ground, and you are getting a hum out of it, that something is wonky with the wiring. And what it generally means is that you have a ground lead going somehow to the hot portion of the circuit somewhere. Usually it'll be associated, if it's a pickup, with that pickup, and so it's easy to track down where that issue is. But in some cases it's not that easy. In some cases it's somewhere else in the circuit, and in those cases it's harder to find. But the main problem is that you have a grounded surface that's somehow now plugged into your active signal. And one of the ways that you can kind of figure that out is by taking your cord. Now we all know that on the guitar cord that when we touch this portion here, the sleeve portion, that is to say the portion that comes into contact with the sleeve here, the part of the output jack that you generally see, we don't really get a sound. There's not really a change in what we hear. But when we touch the tip portion, which goes to this little guy, the interior portion of that output jack, this is your hot signal. And when we touch that, we definitely get a noise. Now, if when you touch that part of your guitar and you touch the tip of the cable and it sounds pretty similar, that should be your first clue that this is the kind of thing that you're dealing with. And sure enough, getting in here and looking at what was going on with this wiring, found that both leads, this is a 2-conductor humbucking pickup, both leads from that humbucker were going to leads on the switch, which is honestly not something that you would typically see ever. It's not something that it's not something that would be part of any normal wiring mod. It's not something that you would see in a correctly wired humbucker. I'll maybe do another video kind of explaining the difference between the 2-conductor, 3-conductor and 4-conductor humbuckers at some point. But if you've got 2 wires coming out of here, one of those wires needs to be going to ground and the other needs to be going to your hot. And that's just it. That's how it's got to work, because that's how the circuit is completed. So if you have a ground that is going into a part of your switch, like one of these guys, and it's soldered into one of these leads, that's going to cause problems. So if you've got 2 wires coming out of the same pickup, and those 2 wires are both hooked up to a live component in your circuitry, and it's coming out of a humbucker, that's generally going to be the cause of that hum that you're getting. So let me just go ahead and I'll connect this, and I'm going to go ahead and connect this back where it was when I first got it in. And you can hear that same sound. This is exactly what it was doing when it came in. Now we're going to go ahead and unplug. You can hear it. It's the same noise. It's just that it's louder when we touch it here than when we touch it here. So if you have a humbucker that has two pickup leads coming out of it, those 2 pickup leads, one of them needs to go to ground. That means it's soldered to the back of a pot, to the back of a plate, or it's got a screw that's going into the shielding, or something that's going into a shielded surface or a grounded surface. So like the back of pots, maybe screws in your switch, or wherever it is. Usually it's the back of a pot that people are grounding stuff to. That needs to be where that ground goes, and the other lead out of it is going to be your hot, and that needs to go to something that goes out, either to your volume knob or your volume pot or your switch or whatever, but it needs to have a path towards your towards that tip of the output jack. So that's one way to identify a fairly common problem that I see. This is a very common thing that comes up in kind of homebrew guitars. If somebody went in and did wiring work and they're not necessarily, you know, like super used to going in there and doing wiring work, you know, this is a pretty easy mistake to make. And so, like, you know, it's a thing that happens. I've done this exact same thing. Everybody who's worked on guitars has wired in a pickup wrong at some point, I promise. But that's how you can identify this particular problem. Anyway, this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. And I have a lot of other videos that are like tutorials and stuff on my channel, and you can check those out if you want to. If you found this video helpful and you wanted to kick me a few bucks on Ko-fi, there's a link in the description. There's also a link to a Patreon where you can kind of sign up. It does help me make these videos because I have to take time out of my repair schedule to make these videos for you guys, and I don't get paid for them. But, you know, if you can't, no pressure at all. I'm doing okay. As far as other stuff that's down in that description, there's a link to my website, and you can check out my prices. You can check out a page that I wrote up about caring for stringed instruments, and you can get my contact information there if you happen to be in the Seattle area and want some repair work done. I can definitely get you scheduled in. Anyway, this is Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. Thanks for watching.